And joining us now from the Washington Post, chief correspondent Dan Balz and senior national political correspondent Ashley Parker. Also with us, former Obama White House communications director Jen Palmieri and former Republican National Committee communications director Doug Heye. So, Dan, first to you. If the president is not going to do so voluntarily, and he is showing so much defiance and a lot of spirit right now, is there any way that the so-called party elites, whom he is just disparaging here, could persuade him to drop out?
It's very difficult to see that happening at this point, given how dug in he is, Andrea. I think that what we have seen over the last few days is that all of the kind of public clamor for him to step aside seems to have moved him in the opposite direction, that he has become more and more defiant. And I think that letter to members of Congress today is the latest indication, as was his appearance on Morning Joe today. My guess is that there are only a handful of people who could really change his sense of where things are or his determination to stay in. Obviously, his family would be that group, but there's no indication that they are anything other than fully behind him and want him to stay in the race. I think that leaves it to people like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi, who perhaps in a quiet way, not in a public way, could give him a kind of the full measure of how they see this and where they think the party is. But you know, as the reporting has shown, there is some movement back in his direction. I think the other aspect of this is, in a sense, he's got further tests ahead this week, and yet this can't go on indefinitely, or seemingly can't go on indefinitely. There will have to be some kind of resolution relatively soon, and if it is that he is staying in the race, you're going to have a very, very nervous party, but not one that has the capability of moving him to the sideline.
And Ashley, many Democrats are saying that the president's ABC interview only reinforced their doubts. Many are privately pointing to this exchange, which Adam Schiff, Congressman Schiff from California, who's of course running for the Senate, called out on Meet the Press.
And if you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the goodest job as I know I can do. That's what this is about.
That is the answer that most concerned me as well. This is not just about whether he gave it the best college try, but rather whether he made the right decision to run or to pass the torch. That is the most important decision for him to make right now.
So, Ashley, you've been talking to voters, you've been talking to politicians. What are you hearing from all of your reporting?
Well, that's exactly right. That was the most alarming line for a lot of Democrats. I have a piece out just a couple hours ago on this very dilemma, which is that for nearly a decade now, the animating force of the Democratic Party, which has brought together different groups of people, different ideological blocs, is all being united against Donald Trump returning to the White House. That is their North Star and really their only star. And now they're in this moment where they don't know who is the best candidate to defeat Donald Trump. And they're grappling with and kind of working through what they all describe as three subpar options. The first, of course, is to prop up Joe Biden, hope he doesn't have another debate night caliber stumble, and he somehow manages to do what he barely did in 2020, which is beat Donald Trump. The second is for him to step aside, which, as Dan pointed out, is hardly a given, and everybody coalesce around Vice President Harris and hope that she can beat Donald Trump. But a lot of people, not a lot, but some people certainly have questions about her. And the third is, again, to try to get Joe Biden to step aside, and if he does, run some sort of mini primary process. But all of those options are rife with risks, which is why when Biden seemed to dismiss those concerns about, you know, if as long as he tries hard, I talked to a donor who stopped donations to all Democrats, to Abigail Disney, until Joe Biden steps aside. And she said, that's a fine line for Pee-wee football. It's not a fine line where if you're Joe Biden and you believe that the stakes are existential and the potential end of American democracy, trying your best is not sufficient.
And Abigail Disney is a very big deal donor, Jen Palmieri, as you well know. And many are looking to Vice President Harris. She doesn't have that broad support in the party or from swing voters, according to the polls. What's the bottom line on whether she could defeat Donald Trump?
I mean, the thing I would say about her, you know, when we look at polling, there was, you know, first of all, I would just need to say any polling of a candidate who's not actually in the race is sort of meaningless because the public reacts very differently to you than when you are a candidate. Just sort of in the abstract idea of a candidate. But the one thing about her that I would note is, you know, she has not gotten very good press in the last 4 years. It's a very difficult position to be in. We only see her intermittently. There's a lot of issues with her coverage. And still, she does pretty good, right? She does pretty well when you see polling. So I think that she would have room to grow. But the sort of, you know, first issue is I don't see the president stepping aside. And I think that the campaign really turned a corner yesterday where he had this strong appearance at a black church. CBC largely having his back. Chair of CBC came out this morning and said that he was supporting him. And it's, individual members of Congress coming out to pressure him to resign. I do not think it's going to work. Frankly, I think in some ways the campaign can say that's just another elite who doesn't get what the base wants and where the party really is. The question is could anybody persuade him for some reason if the members of Congress came back from their home districts and were like, wow, I really heard all these concerns and the president should know them. Is there something that he does not yet know from these members that would actually persuade him to reconsider? That's one question, but I don't think that he's going to feel pressure. I think you can play, it's not ideal, but you could play this off as more of, party insiders deciding that he should not do what Democratic voters in the primary decided he should.
Doug Heye, it's really remarkable to look at it from the Republican perspective. This is Joe Biden running against the Democratic establishment. But, that's an effective tool. We've seen it be used before. I mean, meanwhile, Donald Trump is going to come out and he's been kind of hanging back. And obviously what you do when your opponent's in trouble is sit back and let them dig out of it. Not step on it yourself, but now he's going to be coming out and probably naming a running mate. How do you think all of this crisis in the Democratic side affects, if it does, whether it be Burgum or Marco Rubio, or J.D. Vance?
I don't think it affects his pick per se, but it certainly affects his timing and how he's communicated. Andrea, you've probably gotten 700 press releases in the past few years from Mitch McConnell's team that says Democrats in disarray. Well, this is it. This is the most disarray that I think we've seen a party have amongst itself in generations.
Only since 1968.
And where the Chicago convention was held as well. And so Democrats know this. Republicans certainly see this, and they want to stay out of the way. And as long as we have Democratic members or senators or candidates saying either Joe has to go or that vague, it's Joe's decision to make, or a Democratic version of I didn't read the tweets, I didn't see the interview, I didn't listen to the interview, this is going to continue. And Donald Trump's he has to announce at some point a VP, but he's going to hold back for as long as he can. He doesn't want to get in Joe Biden's way.
Do you think it'll be this week or will it be on the eve of the convention?
I think probably more towards the end of this week or eve of convention, because we want to, as Republicans, let this continue for as long as it can. And it doesn't look like it's going away, with members of Congress back in D.C. from hearing from not elites, but their constituents. That's going to focus this much more this week.
And what we've seen what we used to call the Meet the Press primary, the Tim Russert primary. Now it's the Kristen Welker primary. She's had the candidates all on. They all did well in defending Donald Trump and twisting themselves into knots to a certain extent in terms of their past positions.
Look, a lot of Republicans have become pretzels in the past few years. We've been doing it for a long time, so they know how to do it better and better.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.